All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center for your ride in on this Monday morning. Couple accidents to report. One at I-26 eastbound in Charleston Highway. Another one at Jarvis Clapman and Augusta Road. Another one at Johnson Marina Road and Richard Franklin. And then finally one at Killian and Wilson. Today, high of 83, partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow and Wednesday, partly cloudy with a high of 85. Currently 70 right here in downtown Columbia. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Nine o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri making his return after a few days off to enjoy the bye week as we get you back in here. And we'll be locked in on LSU as the week rolls along. But, Jack, first of all, good to have you back. How was your bye week excursion? I didn't even ask where you went. Hopefully it was something fun.
Yeah, man, I had a great time just getting away for a few days. Went out to Florida with Caroline, and we ended up going to Disney for a few days, which was fun. Just a nice little break from everything. Didn't even, gosh, man, I mean, I barely watched any sports this weekend, which is like, it's crazy. Now, obviously, I know what happened, for the show today, obviously.
Sure.
But, just in general, man, it was nice just to get a break from everything, and yeah, the only thing I kept up with sports-wise really was, of course, the Yankees.
Yep.
But we'll get into that later.
That didn't go the way you wanted it to.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. But, yeah, man, it was great. A lot of rain out in Florida. We've gotten pretty lucky over the years without rain being in Florida whenever we've gone there, for whether it was the bowl game or the bowl game, get a lot of rain. But, overall, good time, good trip, and ready to be back here talking with you. Ready for a big game this weekend.
I was going to say, I didn't ask you, but if somebody would have asked me, hey, where did Jack go? I probably would have guessed Disney. That probably would have been at the top of my list.
Yeah, no, definitely made sense. It was just something that, Caroline asked me one day, like, when are we going back to Disney? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to go for the bye week? We initially planned on going to Boston originally.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, going to Boston was somehow more expensive than going to Florida, and we're like,
really?
Screw it. Let's just let's just go to Florida. And they had like this whole Halloween party type of thing going on at Disney I'd never even been to before, and I'm like, let's just do that. It sounds like fun, and it was. So we had a really good time though.
Very cool. Yeah, we I don't know, we just kind of hung around here. Just took in all the football on Saturday. It is nice to just be able to sit down and just watch games and not have to worry about, all right, we're either going to Williams-Brice Stadium or going to do the watch party for Carolina, which I enjoy doing both those things. But just being able to just be a true fan of the sport on Saturday was nice. My wife and I have discovered this local wing place out where we're at. That's kind of it's a little bit of a secret, but we went and got some wings on Saturday, watched some football. That was a good time. And then we got lost in a corn maze yesterday. Because, it's fall, it's bye week. May as well do something a little bit fun because there's not as many, things to focus on from the weekend for getting ready for the show. And, we went to corn maze, and that was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. I took a picture of the map before we went in. We got about 10 minutes in. I'm like, oh, this is going to be more of a challenge than I thought. So we spent about an hour trying to navigate a corn maze yesterday.
Those things are so freaking hard, man. I mean, you can get lost so easily. Did you lose her at all?
No.
Or were you guys together the entire time?
We stayed together the entire time. And, hey, this is the place over in Lexington for anybody that's been out there, over by Lexington High School. And they have, they give you a little flag. So if you get lost, you can just wave the flag, and somebody will come out there and find you and stuff like that. But I was determined, like, okay, we're going to get out of this. And, like, you get in the middle and you're looking at the map. You're like, okay, I think we're on this, like, because it's in the shape of barnyard animals. Like, all right, I think we're in the hoof of this goat or, like, the horn of the goat or whatever. And, like, we eventually got out, and I felt very accomplished when I did. But, yeah, that was more of an undertaking than I thought it was going to be.
Gosh, so you said over an hour.
Yeah, over an hour. Huh? Yes.
Wow, that is.
So I got my exercise yesterday.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, 1 hour a day.
Oh, man, a lot of things did happen over the weekend. We'll dive into all that, as well as talk about what's happening in South Carolina this upcoming weekend at taking on LSU. But as first, as always, it is 9 o'clock, and we must kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Of course, Carolina was off this past weekend, as was their upcoming opponent, LSU. So both teams on a bye going into this weekend's matchup down in Baton Rouge. We knew this was going to be a night game last Monday when the kickoff window was announced as either 7:30, or 7:45. But just to make sure it was really a night game, it's going to be a 7:45 kick on the SEC network. So not much daylight there to work with. And you being there in person will get to experience LSU at its absolute best when it comes to a night game over in Death Valley.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there. Now, getting to LSU is going to be kind of wacky this weekend because I'm not flying into any part of Louisiana, actually, this weekend.
Okay.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show. Flights to get into New Orleans were insanely expensive.
Really?
We're talking like in the thousands per ticket. So the photographer who travels with me every road game, he found flights to Mobile, Alabama for about $500. So you're basically cutting the price in half. And so we're flying into Mobile on Friday from Charlotte, and then we're driving 3 hours to LSU. So it is going to be interesting. This is the one thing I don't like about traveling is when you have to pick out a different flight that has it's nowhere near where you're supposed to go. But for LSU, for a night game there, I've not been a big fan of the night games this year. But if we're going to LSU, it might as well be a night game. So I'm fine with it.
Well, that's my thing is and you're obviously going there for work purposes, but for the people that are going there to actually watch the game as fans, like, yes, it's more of a challenge for Carolina playing this game at night, but like, yeah, if this is the only time in your life you ever get to go to Baton Rouge, you at least get to say, hey, I experienced Death Valley at its absolute best as opposed to, a noon kick or something like that. Like, even if this doesn't go Carolina's way, you still have like as a college football fan, that's on the bucket list for so many people is to see Death Valley at night. And regardless of whether your team's playing in it or not, because of just the atmosphere and the aura that environment presents. So if nothing else, you'll get to at least experience that this weekend.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. I have no idea what the views look like there from the press box. I don't even know where it is, quite frankly. I just have not been there before, but I am really looking forward to it. Like, talk about stadiums that you definitely want to go to. This is probably one of them for sure. And, been to Kyle Field before, been to Georgia. I mean, this is, I think this is the 10th SEC stadium I've been to now. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there and see if it lives up to the hype, man. It's going to be a challenge for South Carolina on paper, but, we'll see because LSU is obviously coming off that loss to Ole Miss.
We talked about this last week in the days that you weren't here, but we're getting more coming out about the status of Garrett Nussmeier and the fact that he's not been 100% so far to the start of the season. Now, Brian Kelly's not telling us anything. In fact, Brian Kelly is sick of being asked questions about the status of Garrett Nussmeier and how healthy he is, but it's very clear that there's something that's bothering him, and I'm curious to see how much this week off for them helped him maybe get back to the form that he was a year ago, because, again, we went into this season much like Lenore Sellers talking about Garrett Nussmeier being one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football, and he just has not looked the same so far this year. So maybe he is dealing with some kind of injury that's preventing him from being that same type of quarterback. And, of course, it would be Carolina's luck that they catch them coming off a bye to where maybe he can get himself back to close to 100%, but we'll see.
And don't forget, he also did get hurt in the preseason.
Yep.
I remember that was a huge thing. Now, BK has said that Nussmeier won't need surgery or anything on this latest supposed injury that he suffered. But, obviously, I think something is affecting his game because he really hasn't been what you would have hoped. Like, by now, Tyler, I thought he would have thrown for over 300 yards in the game. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, in 3 of his first 5 games, he's had at least 1 interception. And he's the highest passing yard total he's thrown for is 273. I mean, for perspective, Lenore Sellers, who I don't think is a better passer than Nussmeier, maybe now he is, but he has a 300-yard passing this season. So it's been a kind of a weird year to start the season. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been what I think many people expected. I think this is the guy that, if I'm remembering correctly, I think I put him first team All SEC.
Yep.
In preseason ballot. He hasn't played like it, man. He has not played like it completely. And, maybe this will be the week that changes. But again, we just don't know how healthy he is. Is he actually 100%?
Sure.
Or is it a case of where he's kind of not fully healthy?
Yeah, well, we'll find out. And that's what gives me optimism going into this game is that LSU's offense has not been as electric as we thought. They're struggling to run the ball. Caden Durham's also been pretty banged up so far this year. So this isn't a team that I feel like is going to score 35 points on you. Like, I feel like Carolina's defense, if they can play the way they did in the last game against Kentucky, has the opportunity to keep them in that 20-ish point range. The question becomes, okay, can your offense score 20-something points yourself when you haven't been able to do that? Well, I mean, I guess you technically scored 24 points the last time, or 21 points the last time out, so this is the best mark in the Shula era. I think it's going to take more than that to beat LSU, but and that's one thing is LSU's defense has been on so far this year. It's just the offense for them that's been lacking.
Yeah, and I haven't thought too much about what it's going to take South Carolina scoring-wise to win this game, Tyler, but I mean, you got to imagine this is probably going to be a game that ends up in the 20s, right? Like for each team, like
probably
you're probably going to need to get around like 24 points or more, and whether that comes from half of your defense or whatever, that's fine. But also, you do need your offense to go out there and do some things to help you win this game because I think there was progress in these last 2 weeks, but it's just again, I'm still very hesitant about the run game because I don't think it's been particularly great. Though I will say, getting Lenore Sellers kind of going in the passing game and in the run game these last 2 games has been very positive, in my opinion.
Hopefully the Sellers running the ball was not just a product of how bad Kentucky is, and Kentucky's pretty bad. And hopefully that's a sign of things to come. And Sellers made some great plays on the ground last year against LSU in the time that he was actually on the field before getting hurt there. Because you're going to need him to make those kind of plays if you want to be able to go in there and win this Saturday night. There's no doubt about that.
No, totally. I mean, you're going to have him be in all of these games coming up. I mean, you have to have him be your Superman. Do you need him to run the ball 20 times to win? No, you have other running backs that will hopefully get going here. But if Lenoris is your leading rusher at the end of the day, so be it. Like that, if that's what it takes, then that's what you have to do. I mean, Shane Beamer has talked about it. Like, if they need to run Lenoris more, that's what they're going to do. So it wouldn't be surprising if that's kind of what we see going forward. I don't think it's a one-game thing, kind of like you mentioned there with just how bad Kentucky is. I think it's more so South Carolina wants to get him going. Or, again, it could just be the case of Lenoris, not doing the handoff, just faking it because he sees something at the line to change. So if that's what we get going forward, I think that's good for South Carolina.
We'll have plenty of time as this week goes on to dive into this matchup. Coach Beamer will speak tomorrow at 1 o'clock, as he'll do each and every week when they have a game, and we'll focus back in on Carolina taking the field as the week goes by. But it was a wild Saturday in college football. A lot of surprises and some maybe not so much. We'll start diving into that coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. It's our head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. The month of October is the best month sports-wise. You got football, you got baseball, hockey, and basketball starting right around the corner. And it gets even sweeter because it's also National Dessert Month. All month long, you can celebrate National Dessert Month with sweet endings like Cinnamon Toast Crunch Cheesecake topped with rum chata sauce, or the Twin Peaks Sundae with vanilla ice cream and a warm Ghirardelli brownie. You can pair that with Screwball peanut butter whiskey for the ultimate game day finish. And, of course, you got to have some delicious food before you enjoy that dessert. And Twin Peaks got you covered when it comes to wings, burgers, tenders, all the things that you can imagine you love taking in for your sports viewing experience. Twin Peaks has got it. Get down to Twin Peaks today, this weekend, anytime, and take in everything they have to offer, including those 29-degree draft beers. All this and more with our friends over at Twin Peaks.
Lots of maneuvering. Simpson runs under center. They give it to Caden Proctor for the first down. The offensive tackle made a catch and bowled people over after Georgia last Saturday night.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's Ed and Jack Beltray along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the game. Sean McDonough on the call for ABC on Saturday as Caden Proctor takes a handoff on a fourth down to give Alabama a first down that would lead to them kicking a field goal to put themselves up by 9, which pretty much should put the game out of reach. The Jay Miller would score a touchdown to make it a 16-point game as they would pick up the 30-14 victory over Vanderbilt on Saturday. This was the game of the week in terms of College Game Day, all the hype surrounding the upset a year ago, Diego Pavia talking his trash, and, well, Jack, Alabama went out there and handled their business pretty routinely, I would say, as they continue to look like a far cry from the team that we saw all the way back in week number 1, losing to Florida State.
They look so much better. I mean, it's crazy that team played that way against Florida State back in August. I mean, you can put them stacked up against each other, completely different team, night and day difference. Ty Simpson continues to look great. I know he had the one interception in this game, but 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, really good. I think Alabama's benefited so much from having Jam Miller back. I mean, he just had a monster game on Saturday with nearly 140 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And look, this Vanderbilt team, they're tough. I mean, they definitely were when you're going into halftime tied at 14. But Alabama really dominated the second half, in my opinion, and played really well overall and got the job done. And that's what matters at the end of the day. A big monkey off their back in a season of kind of getting monkeys off your back with losing on the road a bunch of times last year. Of course, losing to Vanderbilt, as we all know, in that stunner of a game. Got that big monkey off your back for sure.
Well, there was no doubt that Alabama was not going to overlook Vanderbilt this time, and nobody in that team's going to admit it, but a year ago, they were coming off a big win against Georgia, who I think at the time was the number 1 team in the country, and, they probably looked at Vanderbilt and said, okay, that's a game we should win by 70 points. Obviously ended up getting upset, so there was no doubt that they were going to take this game a lot more seriously than they did a year ago, and I go back to something that Diego Pavia said earlier on in the week. He's like, hey, if we play our game, then this game won't be close, and we'll get into what Vanderbilt is exactly here in a moment, but Vanderbilt didn't play that game. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when Vandy came in here. They're a team that does not turn the ball over a whole lot. They turned it over in 2 critical moments on Saturday where Pavia fumbled when they were inside the Bama 10, already up 7-0 in the game. And then later in the game, he threw a pick in the red zone when they were down only 6 in the fourth quarter. And obviously, if you even turn those 2 into just field goals, you're talking about a much different game here for Vanderbilt. So they turned the ball over in key moments. They couldn't run the ball in the second half of the game. They only had 9 total rushing yards in the second half there. And, of course, we know that's the bread and butter of Vanderbilt's offense in that spread option type of run game that they just weren't able to do against this Alabama defense.
Yeah, this didn't look like the Vanderbilt that we saw coming to Williams-Brice Stadium a few weeks ago. I mean, look, this was definitely a game that Alabama's had circled on their calendar. Let's be honest, and after what happened last year. But again, you got to give credit to Alabama and the defense they have. They forced some critical turnovers when it mattered, and Diego Pavia obviously is a funky quarterback. He's someone that tries to get in your head. I mean, we saw him before the game doing the kneel down during warm-ups.
Yeah,
which was like. He had Johnny Manziel in attendance and stuff, wearing the Pavia jersey. So, I mean, he had all this other stuff going on. But, again, at the end of the day, Alabama just played better. I mean, it's plain and simple. You look at the stats, it's all clear as day. Almost 500 yards total in this game for the Tide. I mean, just a really good performance for them. But Vanderbilt, I think it shows that they're not perfect. They have a lot of work to do moving forward. But I think Vanderbilt's still got some big goals ahead of them.
I want to loop back around to Ty Simpson really quick here because last week we did our September Heismans, and I don't know who you would have given as your choice. I went with Dante Moore, but I didn't even have Ty Simpson in my top 3 as far as like finalist if we were to hand out the trophy as of right now. But, man, after another performance like that against what we think is a pretty good Vandy team, like just shy of 1,500 yards on the season, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. Like, this dude is on track. If he keeps playing this way, he will definitely be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. I do not deny that at all.
No, he should be. I mean, that's how he's playing right now. He's definitely making a big difference for Alabama right now. And again, we've talked about it before. We've seen this before with quarterbacks that have waited their turn at Alabama, and they've come in and made a big impact. And that's what we're seeing out of him right now. He's just been really solid for this team. I think he is just the straw that stirs the drink for that offense, and they're having a lot of success right now.
And the perception of this team, again, has shifted so much just in the first 5 weeks of the regular season, and obviously a huge win on the road last week against Georgia, which kind of bucked the trend of Kalen DeBoer teams struggling on the road no matter who they're playing. So it really kind of looks like they've corrected all their mistakes. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated down the stretch, but I'd be very surprised right now if this Alabama team's not in the playoff with the way that they're playing.
They should be. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be. I mean, I think they've kind of gotten over everything that's happened last year. Now, all that to be said, you still have to go to Missouri. That could be tricky. You still have Tennessee coming up. You have to go to Carolina. You get LSU and Oklahoma at home, and you go to Auburn. So some really tricky games. But I think this Alabama team can be fine right now, especially since their one loss didn't come in SEC play. I think they're still very much in the mix to go to Atlanta for the SEC championship, if you had to ask.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, they don't have any losses in conference play. So realistically, they have, in my opinion, at least one more loss to work with. And again, it's challenging schedule as everybody's is in the SEC. And like I said, nobody in the conference was going to go undefeated. And, well, right now there's only a few candidates left on that, which we'll get to here coming up in just a little bit. But, yeah, even if they lost a conference game, still in the driver's seat to potentially make it to the conference championship game. And, yeah, again, they're playing some of the best football in the country right now. And hats off to Kalen DeBoer and, Ty Simpson and what they've been able to do over those last couple of weeks. Because, again, so many people had written them off after week number one. And they took that as, fuel and obviously used it well.
And on the flip side, I mean, what does this do for Vanderbilt? I mean, is this going to be a loss that kind of has them sputtering a little bit with LSU coming up, Missouri coming up? You go to Texas. I mean, this schedule still is a little bit tough for Vanderbilt. We kind of figured they were going to lose this game.
Sure.
They're still one win away from bowl eligibility. I think they could still be about an 8-9 win team with the way the schedule looks. But, I mean, I think it brought them back to reality a little bit of like, hey, like they're not as good as these bigger teams in the conference.
Well, that's my thing is like I still think Vanderbilt is a really good team, and that loss on Saturday doesn't change my opinion of that because guess what? Alabama's a really, really good team. This is still a Vanderbilt team, though, that I think is capable. And look, they've still got plenty of tough games down the stretch. They're going to have to play, Texas, teams like that. I think they still got to play LSU. So, they're going to have opportunities against other really good teams that they might end up beating some of those teams. But, yeah, I still think this is a team that realistically could be around that 8, maybe even 9 win range. And I don't know if they're going to be like a playoff dark horse type of thing, but certainly by Vandy standards, it's going to be one of the better seasons we've seen in a while.
No, totally. I mean, look, we think they should probably beat, Auburn, Kentucky. That's 7 wins right there. Maybe run your way into a win against LSU, Missouri, Texas, and Tennessee. Who knows? But you're talking about a pretty good season by Vanderbilt standards. But, I mean, one loss doesn't change the whole perception of the year. They're still a very good football team. It's just you got some things now to correct for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And Diego Pavia is somebody that rubs people the wrong way, and I will continue to go back to what I always say about him. He's confident, and I respect confidence because he's somebody that walks out on the field believing he is the best, and no matter what the results is, he's going to come away from the game still believing that. And that's something that I can appreciate that I know bugs a lot of people. But, man, he's really changed the culture of this Vanderbilt team. And like I said, I think they're still in store for a pretty good season overall.
They'll be fine. I mean, we'll see what they do these next few weeks. But, again, I have confidence Vanderbilt's still going to have the year they want to have for sure.
Well, one team that's in a little bit of trouble is the Texas Longhorns after they went on the road to Florida this past weekend. A lot to examine on both sides of this game. From the Texas perspective, what happens now, and the Florida perspective of is Billy Napier's job safe? We'll check into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday. Listen to your thoughts. 803-404-6100 here on the Extra Point on the Game. Ty right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. Like clockwork, this morning I once again passed a Canty Foundation Specialist truck on the way in. And every time I see one, I always think, well, they're on the way to help somebody with some foundation issues. And I'm happy to remind you, once again, you always need to be on the lookout for those foundation issues around your own home. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues, and that's where Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist.
Okay, obviously disappointing loss in the fact that, man, we just didn't play great. We really didn't play very good, and especially early on in the ball game. We struggled to get stops defensively. We really were not very good at the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball early. We got a little better on defense, but we just weren't great at the line of scrimmage on offense. Had some opportunities, missed some opportunities, but we battled and competed, and we competed till the very end. I love the fight of the guys, but we got to play better, and we just didn't play good enough, and that's on me. So,
welcome back in. It is the Extra Points Hour, and Jack Felcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday. By the way, a reminder, in about 10 minutes, your next chance to win $1,000 for their national cash contest. Just be listening out for the keyword and text it to 95819 for your next chance to win $1,000. That, of course, was the voice of Steve Sarkisian, the head coach of the Texas Longhorns, trying to make sense of the 29-21 loss for, at the time, the number 9 Longhorns in the Swamp against the Florida Gators on Saturday. They are no longer the number 9 Longhorns, which we'll get to coming up here in just a little bit. And I'm looking at staff picks right now, Jack. I don't believe there was a single one of us that took Texas, though as the week went along, I had this feeling in the back of my mind like maybe, just maybe, Billy and the boys can turn it on and make magic happen once again. And because here's my thing. I don't know if this is more of a product of Florida playing well or Texas just playing really bad, and I'm thinking it's the latter.
Yeah, it's just been a weird year for Texas, and I kind of had that same thing, Tyler. I was like, there's part of me that thinks Florida can win this game, but I would look like a major hypocrite if I'm talking about my hot takes and stuff and thinking that Billy Napier is going to be gone after I think I said like the A&M game.
You said a 1-5 start.
Well,
so that would be after the A&M game.
That's wrong now. So we'll talk about Billy here in a bit. But yeah, I mean, look, Florida just played better than Texas. Simply as that. I mean, much better. And I think the main takeaway I have from this game is, number one, I don't think Texas is as good as everyone made them out to be as a preseason number 1 heading into the season. Now they're unranked and out of the top 25. And I think this goes to show why we just don't need preseason rankings based on how they did last year. I mean, these teams, we just don't know enough about these teams heading into the year. And we've seen so many teams drop out of the top 25 that were so highly ranked earlier in the year. The other thing is Arch Manning. For all the buzz around him and everything that he was expected to do, he hasn't been good. He has not been good. Not good enough to win you games. And, I mean, where has this Florida team been all this time?
I'm a believer that two things can be true at the same time. And, yes, Arch Manning has definitely underwhelmed compared to where we thought he was going to be in his first 4 years as starter at Texas. But watching the game on Saturday, and I had Alabama Vanderbilt on the TV, and I had this game on my laptop because Florida gotten out to the 19-7 lead, and I'm like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. So I have it on my laptop and just kind of keeping an eye on it, but mainly paying attention to Alabama Vanderbilt because that was a tighter game at that point in time. But every time I looked down to watch Texas on offense, Arch Manning was under duress. Like the pocket was caving in on him. He was getting sacked. He got sacked 6 times in this game. He was pressured on 60% of his dropbacks. Now, we like to look at Pro Football Focus a lot. And look, not every rating is going to be the truth of what somebody is. But their right tackle, Nick Brooks, got a 0.0 pass blocking grade on Saturday. That tells you how terrible he was doing his job. The offensive line as a whole gave up 23 pressures and 17 hurries. Arch Manning's not playing great, but he has absolutely no help up front on that offensive line.
Not to mention, he has no help in the run game either. I mean, you're becoming so one-dimensional as an offense. Take out what Arch did in the run game. 15 carries, 37 yards. The lead rusher in this game, Wisner, had 11 yards. I mean, Texas ran for 15 yards on the ground, aside from Arch Manning. How are you supposed to win a football game when you can't run the ball and you have to rely on Arch, who, again, like you said, Tyler, was getting pressured all afternoon? I think Florida had a good game plan coming into this one, not just for the fact that it was at home, it was at the Swamp, but you knew if you created pressure on Arch, he was going to be forced into some difficult situations. And when you have the issues that you have with the blocking up front and the lack of a run game, makes it very easy to go target Arch and make life tough on him, which it was for sure on Saturday.
And look, their defense is playing solid. You know, they're doing a fine job, and as you would kind of expect, because Texas has so much talent on that side of the football. The offensive issues become more inexcusable, though, when you consider the fact that Sark is an offensive-minded head coach. He's the one calling the plays, so it lands squarely on his lap when things aren't going well, and it's the evaluation of the quarterback, it's the pieces that you have around him, it's the lack of running game, it's the offensive line. Like, it's all going bad right now. And again, we thought, okay, well, maybe you were just playing a really good Ohio State team in week number 1. Maybe that's why your offense didn't look great. But now this has become a thing. And look, I don't care what you did against Sam Houston State and UTEP and all these other nobody teams that you played in the week since. Like, Texas has an offensive problem, and when you're halfway through the season almost at this point in time, it's not going to change overnight. Our perception of this team has shifted drastically from one we thought might be a serious contender for the national championship this year.
This was what we wondered was, okay, they lost to Ohio State week 1. They're getting San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. We're not going to learn a thing about that team until they get into SEC play with Florida. And how they look, they didn't look good. So, we've seen it twice now where, Arch, Texas have not looked good in their 2 biggest games of the year so far. Now they get the bye week, and then they play in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma out there in Dallas next weekend. And, man, I got to be honest. I just don't think Texas is very good right now. They'll get Kentucky. They'll get Mississippi State. They'll get Vanderbilt. Then they got to go to Georgia, too, man.
Mississippi State ain't a walk in the park, man.
No, it's not. And I almost wonder, man. I know we have it in the notes here. What does Texas do with Arch Manning? Because he hasn't been very good. Not completely terrible. I think there's other issues going on around him that are out of his control. But, would Texas even consider making a quarterback change to kind of help change the direction of where things are heading right now?
Well, here's the thing. Last year, Quinn Ewers did not set the world on fire. He played fine, but he had his ups and downs. And there were multiple times last year, namely in the Georgia game, when Texas found themselves down by 3 scores, they gave Arch Manning a shot. They said, okay, Arch, if you want to take over the reins, here's your chance. We'll put you in there and take Quinn Ewers out. Arch Manning was never able to take the reins of that. This is such a unique situation, though, and look, we're all very aware of the NIL dollars that Arch Manning commands. What is the dynamic if you're the collective out there at Texas, if you're $10 million or close to that quarterback, however much he's making out there, is sitting on the bench and Matthew Caldwell is playing instead? Now, that might be in the best interest of the team, but we've never seen this kind of dynamic where a quarterback making that much money, commanding that much of the resources of a team like that, might realistically be better served not playing right now.
And that's what makes it tough to be would that almost feel like Texas admitting defeat in some ways, or being like, hey, this thing just has not worked out with Arch? And again, he's making a lot of money. We know that. He was a good high school quarterback, but let's face it, a lot of that money has to do with the last name he has. Yep. And he's waited his turn. I thought he was going to be better than this. Honestly, I didn't think he was going to be like this, but I think it's almost in your best interest. If you want to kind of save your season, you might need to make a quarterback change, because I just don't see enough of a sample size to feel like, Arch is going to be good. Because honestly, even in the 3 games against, lesser opponents, he didn't look anything special. He looked okay.
Outside of flexing on that DB from Sam Houston State that he trucked going in the end zone, which that might end up being the highlight of the season for him if things continue with the way they are. And I don't know if you saw it, but on the last drive, he lost his helmet for a play, and Matthew Caldwell had to come in, and he ripped a great 20-yard or so pass off.
26 yards.
Yeah, and then immediately had to go back out of the game. But everybody, the conversation was like, wow, this is the best pass thrown all day by a Texas quarterback. So, again, we didn't think we'd get to this point, but there's a real conversation of, is Arch Manning your best choice at quarterback going forward? Because you're not dead yet. You only have 2 losses, only one of them in conference play. You can still accomplish your goals, but Arch Manning may not be your answer.
They're going to continue to ride with him, as they probably should. But again, if this is going to be the trend that continues of like, you don't look good against Oklahoma, you don't look good against like Kentucky and teams like that, like hopefully he gets better as the year goes on. But man, it's getting late quickly here, and
definitely
it might come to a point where they do need to figure something out here.
We thought it was getting late on Billy Napier's time as the head coach of Florida, but maybe he saved his butt once again. We'll dive into that up next as we wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry, Reaction Monday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's Ed and Jack Beltry, Rabbit and Bauer, number one here on your Reaction Monday on the game. We talked in the last segment there about the struggles of Texas, and the other side of this game in Florida's 29-21 win was the question of what happens now with Billy Napier. Because going into the weekend, there was a lot of people, including myself, and I even asked Wes and Chris this in our Buy or Sell segment on Friday, could we see a coach, the fifth Power 4 coach of the season, get fired this past weekend? And I thought Billy Napier was at the top of that list if things went ugly against Texas like they did a season ago. And just like last year where he proceeded to beat LSU and Ole Miss in consecutive games, both ranked teams at the time, he saved his butt in that regard. This time around, I don't know if it saves his butt or not, but it at least delays Billy Napier getting kicked to the curb in Florida for at least another week.
Yeah, this is a game that, again, now Texas is like unranked, so it's not as impressive of a win as it may have been otherwise.
But they were top 10 when they played them.
They were top 10 when they played them, but again, we will see what Texas becomes as the year goes along. But you need this win badly, man. You needed it, and you got it. You go to College Station here in 2 weeks, and then, the schedule does pick up after that. Like, you get Georgia, you get Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. There's still a lot of time for things to continue to go south for Florida, but at the end of the day, you got the win you needed, and I don't think it saves his job by any means. I mean, we will see what this team looks like by the end of the year, but I think it does that. I think it gives you time to kind of get things fixed before the end of the season here.
Well, and I said this last year when Napier did turn it on at the end of the season and saved his job, at least for another season, that, like, to me, Billy Napier is what it is, right? He is a 500 coach at Florida who, look, recruits well, brings in good talent, gets talent out of the transfer portal, all that kind of stuff, but we've not seen the results happen on the field. And give them credit. Like, they've pulled off some pretty big wins in these last couple of years, but I don't have any. If I'm a Florida fan, I've seen enough to know that despite the win on Saturday, this is not just going to suddenly flip some magical switch and now Billy Napier is going to turn this team into a playoff contender the next couple of years. I don't believe that. I think he's still on his way out. You just kick the can down the road a little bit further by having this kind of win to where you don't have an interim head coach today. He's still coaching the team.
He needs to stack up a few of these wins to kind of save his job and make it to the end of the season. Again, you need to probably beat, I would say you have 1, 2, 3. You have 5 ranked opponents left on your schedule. First off, you need to be able to beat Mississippi State and beat Kentucky. That has to happen. I think you need 2 more top 25 wins in those 5 other games I mentioned. I mean, I don't know where they're going to come. I mean, Florida State looks a lot more beatable right now. You get Tennessee at home. Obviously, you have the neutral site game with Georgia, but, like, road trips to A&M and the Ole Miss could be pretty tough. So, again, a lot of work left to do for Florida and Billy Napier to save his job for another year. But we saw this happen last year where Florida had some really big wins down the stretch. This one comes a little bit earlier in the year. Can that kind of get Florida going? Because they looked like a completely different football team to the one they were playing like earlier on this year.
I think if you're Florida, you realistically have to win like 8 games this year to make people think, okay, we're turning in the right direction, because you started off the season so poorly, so terribly, with bad losses to a team like South Florida. That is a good team, but no reason why why Florida should be losing that game. Like, you really got to make something magical happen this year to further the belief that Billy Napier can do something here, because I still don't buy it, even with that win on Saturday against a Texas team that by season's end we might be saying, oh, well, they're not really that good anyway.
No, I'm not fully even bought in on it yet. And again, I'll eat my words on what I said about Billy being gone after the A&M game. I thought it was going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen right now. Doesn't mean it can't. I will say that. Doesn't mean it can't happen if Florida goes back to earth and just looks awful in College Station in 2 weeks. But again, I think this does, like you said, kick the can down the curb a little bit to where maybe he does make it to the end of the year, and then maybe Florida decides to do something after the season. But I don't think getting to a bowl game is going to save his season.
Well, Texas' loss wasn't the most embarrassing one of the weekend. We'll get into what happened with Penn State out of L.A. coming up next here in the Extra Point in the Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help you out. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Give AAA Heating and Air a call today. The number to call is 803-677-1500. Again, that's 803-677-1500. Tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in hour number 2. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Veltri here on your Reaction Monday. No Gamecock football to break down from this weekend, so we're talking about all things that happened around college football and a weekend that I think when we looked at the schedule, we thought, there's some okay games on here. We'll get to Florida State and Miami coming up here in a bit. The obviously Alabama-Vanderbilt game was kind of the highlight with game day being there and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, did you check out Theo Vaughn on game day at all Saturday morning?
I saw him, that little bit he had with that one female reporter, but other than that, not really. I saw a few picks he made, but again, I really tried not to watch much of anything this weekend.
Yeah, you didn't. Like, I'm a fan of Theo Vaughn, but it was just like he had a few funny moments, but it was still kind of weird him being an opposing fan at Alabama's game day. I don't know. It was something. There were some clips from it for sure.
I just thought it was so strange how he was the pick for game day. And again, I saw one clip of Reese Davis talking to some of the Alabama media about why Theo Vaughn was picked for game day, and he mentioned hey, look, they have Nick Saban on there, who's Alabama through and through as a former coach there and stuff. So they have their Alabama guy on there. But yeah, to bring in, I don't know how many times that's happened where you have a visiting team's fan as the guest picker.
Very few. I remember instances where they brought in 2 pickers, one for the home team, one for the away team. Like, that's happened before, but very rare, if ever before, has it been a very clear fan of the opposing team that comes in to be a game day picker. I don't know. It was different, that's for sure.
It's just crazy because of all the Alabama alumni that are former football players that you could have brought in, or
heck, last year they got Miss Terry.
Yeah, you have Miss Terry. That's always a good fallback option. But yeah, Theo Vaughn was, and they didn't bring Diego Pavia's mom up there with him, right?
No, they didn't. That didn't happen.
No, man, that missed out opportunity.
Either way, the game is the more important thing here. Before we get into what happened with Penn State, Northeastern Mike weighs in on the Firehouse Subs text line and says, "Hey guys, I'm thinking Arch Manning is more like Eli than Peyton. I wouldn't compare him to either one of those guys because Eli, while not as great as Peyton overall, was still a pretty darn good quarterback. And if Arch Manning keeps playing like this, he'll be lucky to be on a practice squad in the NFL. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he can't get better, but I've just not seen anything out of him to quantify him to compare to either one of his uncles or his granddad.
He may need that extra year of eligibility next year to run it back.
Which his granddad did say he was going to use.
Yeah, he should. He should. I mean, he's going to need to right now because I just don't see where he's getting picked early on. And look, the thing about Eli is for all the disrespect he gets, he did beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. So I don't know how many people. I think he's probably like one of the only people that could ever say that he's been able to do that.
The only one to do it twice.
So
in the Super Bowl at least. So yeah, Arch got a long way to go to get into the stratosphere of either one of his uncles, and maybe that extra eligibility will certainly help. We'll have to see, but it's not looking great as of right now. All right, let's go out to Los Angeles and see what happened on Saturday and the game that really, really took all of us by surprise.
Obviously, we did not handle last week's loss well. We also lost some players in that game during the week, and then everything else, the travel, everything else. Did not come out with the right energy to start the game, and before you know it, obviously they get a touchdown drive and an onside kick, and now you're fighting. They gain confidence, and we're fighting for the next 3 quarters. So that's my responsibility, and I didn't get it done.
Of course, James Franklin, the head coach of the Penn State and Indy Lions, is at the time we're number 7 in the country, went on the road to UCLA, taking on the hapless 0-4, a team that had not led a game this year. UCLA Bruins, who have already fired their head coach, just handed play calling duties over to Jerry Neuheisel earlier on this week. Nico Iamaleava looked like he's been a complete bust, and they went out there and lost the game. They were down by 3 touchdowns going in to halftime. And look, we joke about James Franklin losing matchups against the Oregons and the Ohio States and all the highly ranked teams, he never loses these games. Like, these are the games where he handles his business, and they absolutely did not do that on Saturday.
I got to tell you, man, I was stunned by this game. I mean, UCLA looked awful this season. I mean, it's why Deshaun Foster got fired, right? But, I mean, Penn State, again, these West Coast trips for these teams that are out on the East Coast can always be tricky, in the ACC and the Big Ten, obviously, just because it's so much travel that you have to have, and you have the jet lag, and you have the time difference and stuff. Maybe that had an effect on Penn State, but the point is, they didn't look good in this game. I mean, it was a last-ditch effort to make this game as close as it ended up being, but, I mean, UCLA dominated this game. And, I mean, Nico Iamaleava had a really nice game. Give credit where it's due. Looked good passing, ran the football really well, had 3 touchdowns in this game. I mean, look, Jerry Neuheisel did a very nice job with this offense in this game, and he put 42 points on Penn State. Not eliminating Penn State from the college football playoff, I don't think, but man, it's going to get tough to even be there with a 3-2 record. Oh, by the way, you're 0-2 in the Big Ten so far.
Well, and to put this in perspective, you know, last year Penn State made it all the way to the semifinals. It came down to the very end where they lost to Notre Dame, and the Fighting Irish went on to play for the national championship. And, you know, they had beaten, Boise State, and then they played SMU to open up the college football playoff. They had the easier path to get to the semifinals and came up short when they had to play another top 10 team in Notre Dame. But looking into this year, and yes, I get it, they lost Abdul Carter, they lost Tyler Warren, 2 extremely talented guys that were very important to both sides of the football for them a year ago. But we talked about this back in the summer, like, if there was ever a year for Penn State to finally get over the hump, finally start beating top 10 teams, and finally make a serious run at the national championship, it would be this year, because Drew Aller was coming back. They had one of the best running back duos in all of college football, a lot of talent returning from that defense from a year ago. And you looked around at Oregon and Alabama and Georgia and all these other teams that we marked as contenders, replacing quarterbacks and a lot of other pieces, and those teams have figured things out, and Penn State has somehow gotten worse than they did a season ago. And it's not just a situation of, okay, well, you lost to Oregon, that's a fine loss, and you can still rebound and maybe see them in the Big Ten championship. You have to be perfect from here on out to even sniff the college football playoff because of how bad this loss is. There's a reason UCLA had already fired their head coach. There's a reason why nobody paid attention to this game going into the weekend. You were a 24.5-point favorite. By the way, Penn State 0-5 against the spread this year, by the way, for those keeping up with those kind of things. This game shouldn't have been close. I don't care how far you had to travel for this game. Your C-level game should still be able to beat this UCLA team, and you didn't get it done.
And here's the thing, man. I mean, I think Penn State's got a few more losses on the schedule. You go to Iowa. That's always tricky. And you get Northwestern at home next week. You should win that game. But you get Iowa on the road. You go to Ohio State. You got Indiana, a top 10 team coming into town. I mean, dude, this is a tough schedule, like the rest of the way. Like, you have potentially 2 more losses, maybe 3 on your schedule, and this would be really disappointing for Penn State. I think that almost leads you to the next discussion of, okay, if Penn State does finish, let's say 8-4, 7-5 this year, what do you do? Do you keep James Franklin, the guy that can't win a big game, to save his life? Or is this just an anomaly in what's been a pretty good tenure, despite the fact of just not being able to win the big games?
Well, James Franklin's buyout, I think, is like $56 million. You'd be hard pressed to just scrounge up that money and move on from him. And again, he is a good coach, and you've always been a good program under him. But I'm interested to see, is the domino effect of this, right? And like you said, they still got tough games coming up with Indiana and Ohio State that they very well could end up losing those matchups. But losses like this, a lot of times when you look at programs that are good or really good, and they have just kind of a really bad loss or string of games, that can end up kind of being the turning point of what that program is going forward. I'm almost interested to see, because again, James Franklin doesn't lose these games. Loses top 10 teams, does not lose against the teams that he has no business losing too. So I almost wonder if in a couple years, do we look back and maybe James Franklin's fired by then? I don't know. But we say, you know what? It was that UCLA game in 2025. That's when it all kind of started falling downhill and it just kind of tumbled from there. Like, this could very well be looked back at as a pivotal moment in the decline of Penn State football if they don't make some serious changes. What those changes are, I don't know, but they clearly don't have what they need to be successful this year.
There are going to be a lot of questions heading into the offseason in a few months if Penn State continues kind of in this downward spiral. And again, lost a tough game, double overtime to Oregon a week earlier. But again, you should not lose to UCLA, a team that didn't even look like they were going to win a game this season with the schedule that they have in the Big Ten and losing the games that they did. Just an utterly embarrassing loss for Penn State, probably one of the worst in program history, I would say, considering, like you said, how big of a favorite they were in this game. I don't care that you had to travel across the country. Like you said, Tyler, your C-level performance should be able to beat Penn State or this UCLA team. But again, give credit where it's due. Nico had a pretty good game. Neuheisel called a good game plan, and UCLA was able to get the job done.
Rick Neuheisel, who, by the way, and actually I want to play this clip really quick because here is him explaining just how little time they had to prepare this game plan, which makes this loss for Penn State look even worse.
It's up there. First thing I want to say is I love UCLA more than anything. And the kind of kids that you see that played on that field today is exactly why you love a place like this. We had 2 days to practice the new game plan, and all they did was believe. And we came out and played as hard as we could for 60 full minutes. Had to take a safety at the end because we messed it up a little bit, but like, how can you not love college football when you have days like this?
A first-time play caller who had 2 days to prepare his team, and he even admitted as well after the game, he didn't know how the headset worked because he was trying to talk to Nico in his headset and it ended up not working right because he was pressing the wrong button. That's the guy and that's the team that put 42 points on your defense.
This reminds me of what was it, a few years ago when Baker Mayfield was traded to the Rams and he had I don't even know how long to learn the playbook for the Rams, and he ends up winning that Thursday night game. I think it was against like the Raiders or something. I mean, it's crazy how much better UCLA looked in this game. And give credit to Neuheisel. I mean, it's tough to learn all that and put it all together in 2 days, but they did. And look, it took Penn State scoring a lot of points, 30 points in the second half, to make this game close. I mean, just UCLA, I don't know what they're going to do the rest of the year. It could be all downhill from here, though you only have, again, it's kind of like Penn State. You have Indiana and you have Ohio State as your two toughest games the rest of the way. But, I mean, look, maybe UCLA can rattle off a few wins. I mean, look, if you could beat Penn State, maybe you could start getting things going here.
I feel like this is a classic example of they're not going to do anything notable the rest of the year, but this is going to be the one win they have to look back on, which is going to make the Penn State loss look even worse, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, and it will probably be one. Regardless of what Penn State does the rest of the year, I mean, look, maybe they do play for a Big Ten championship and win it. But if they're having to be looked at as an at-large team, let's say they do go 10-2, I mean, do you just leave them out of the playoff considering, hey, your one of your losses was to like one of the worst teams in the Power Four in UCLA? If UCLA doesn't do anything the rest of the year,
I don't know. That'd be you'd have wins over quality teams if you went 10-2, but that is that's a debate that I don't think they're going to have to make, but would definitely be hard to support a lost UCLA if they did get put in that situation. There were other games happening over the weekend, including one in Tallahassee. We'll discuss how that one went as we continue on with the recap of the college football weekend as the Extra Point continues on. It's Ed and Jack Belcher here in the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's all right, and Jack Belcher along with you on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Again, Coach Beamer back to his normal Tuesday press conference coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock as the Gamecocks look ahead to their matchup on the road, taking on LSU on Saturday night out in Baton Rouge, and we'll have all that coverage for you starting on Saturday with the Gamecocks game day at 2:30, and then kickoff at 7:45. Of course, you can listen to all that right here on The Game. And as always, for away games, we'll be hanging out at O'Hara's Public House on Main Street in Lexington. Come by and hang out with us for the game and the watch party as well. Saturday night, the game of the week, or the game of the day on Saturday night, was Miami taking on Florida State in a matchup between two powerhouses in the ACC, or so we thought going into this matchup. And I know the final score looks like it was close, and I know if you look at the box score, you'd say, wow, man, this is really back and forth, nip and tuck kind of a game. Don't let that fool you. Miami dominated this one. They were up 28-3 at one point. Florida State did do enough to get themselves back in contention late, but make no mistake about it, if Miami kept their foot on the gas, this could have been a whole lot worse. Miami might actually be the best team in the country right now, and they proved that again on Saturday night.
How is Florida State still ranked after this game? Like, I thought they were totally going to be out of the rankings.
Because they beat Alabama, and Alabama looks good.
Yeah, I get that, but come on. I mean, lost 2 straight games. I picked Florida State to win this game in Staff Picks. I thought that the Virginia game was just, all right, it was a Friday night. You're on the road in the ACC. You're playing a team that's on the come up right now. It happens, right? And you're back at home. I know Miami's been really, really good this year, but I just thought for whatever reason, I thought Florida State was going to be the real deal this year. And 2 straight losses now. And like you said, this game was not as close as the score may have indicated. I think the thing about Miami is they're for real. They are legit as it comes. I mean, they have the right quarterback for that system. Carson Beck has been incredible so far this year. 4 touchdowns on Saturday, no interceptions. Just another really solid performance for Miami, who I think you can argue right now might be, like, obviously they're number 3 in the country, but I think you can make the case that they're the best team right now out there in college football.
I think so. And you have Carson Beck. You have Malachi Toney. He's a really great wide receiver. That defense is really good. And we've seen them stifle several opponents so far this year. Like, they look like an all-around complete type of team. My hang-up with them is, like, Mario Cristobal always finds a way to lose a game or a couple games he has no business losing. So if they can avoid doing that, then maybe they can finally put this thing together and go all the way. But, I mean, through the first 5 weeks of the season, because, and we'll get into the AP poll coming up here in a minute, I've seen them play more quality competition than Ohio State has. So it's easy to say, well, Miami looks better. But, like, man, that is... I've seen a lot of Miami so far this year, and it's given me a lot of reason to believe that they might actually be the best team in the country. But time will work everything out. Don't worry.
Here's the thing. Their schedule, I think it points to them. I think they can have a perfect season, man. I think they can go undefeated in the regular season. You get Louisville on a Friday night here in 2 weeks. You get the bye week. You're at home. You don't have to go out of the state of Florida until November 1st when you go to SMU. And granted, you have 3 road games coming up against SMU, at Virginia Tech, and at Pitt. But I think Miami can win all those games. And, I mean, you get Syracuse, you get NC State, you get Stanford, and you get Louisville as well. I mean, maybe, like you said, Mario Cristobal tends to lose a game that maybe they shouldn't just because of his own shortcomings or just something that went wrong. But until proven otherwise, I mean, this Miami team is very good. I think they're legit, and we saw what they did on Saturday against FSU.
On the other side of things, Florida State, who, again, came out with that shocking and impressive win over Alabama in week number 1, they're now 0-2 in conference play. And I think a lot of us looked at this game this past weekend as, hey, maybe this is a setup for the ACC championship game. Florida State has no margin for error. Like Virginia, Georgia Tech, those teams have more conceivable paths to get themselves to the ACC title game right now than Florida State does. Because, again, it's the teams with the best 2 rankings. It's not divisionally split anymore. So Florida State has got their work cut out for them. And I think we've learned in these past 2 weeks, they're maybe not as great as we thought. And Thomas Castellanos, as competent as he is, can make some pretty bad mistakes. Bad turnovers on Saturday night. those kind of things. So we'll see just how good Florida State is in this stretch run of the season now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they still have a trip to the West Coast to play Stanford. You got to go to Clemson. You go to NC State on a Friday night late in the year. And obviously you go to Florida. I mean, like, I could see probably another loss or two. I think what we've learned about FSU is they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit. Yes, the win over Alabama in week 1 was great, but, you know, that's why you play 11 other games to figure out how you are as a team. One win does not define your season, and Florida State's in a better spot now compared to last year, obviously. But 2 straight losses, and I mean, you really hope it just doesn't continue to spiral. I think they're going to be fine over these next few weeks, but I could definitely see them finishing 8-4, 9-3, which is still good for them. But obviously, the season that they want to have is not looking attainable right now with 2 straight ACC losses.
So Miami looks like the best team in the ACC right now, maybe the best team in the country. There was a team that we thought might end up being the best in the ACC, but they've fallen far from that, though they did pick up a win over the weekend, that being Clemson, and we'll dive into what exactly happened in Chapel Hill, as well as take a look at the latest AP Top 25. Coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along here on Your Reaction Monday. It's our head and Jack Beltry on the game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air has your back. They offer guaranteed financing, 12 months with no payments or interest, and a 15-year warranty on parts and labor. If you need a system, they're the best in the Midlands. But here's the question. What if you don't need a replacement? What if you just need a repair? Well, I've got some good news for you. AAA has you covered there as well. They offer up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check required for homeowners who just need repairs. All you need is just to have a valid bank account, and they'll handle the rest. So whether you need a replacement or repair, AAA Heating and Air has unbeatable options for you. Give them a call today, 803-677-1500. Again, that is 803-677-1500. And you can tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game.
think we're making history today because this, out of my whole 25 years of doing this, is my earliest show I've ever done in my entire life. We have never in our lives did a 10 a.m. show, never. But you know what I'm surprised at? What's that? It's how hyped y'all are at 10 in the damn morning.
Welcome back in, X Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Beltry along with you. That was Ludacris, yes, the one and only Ludacris, performing at Chapel Hill ahead of North Carolina taking on Clemson on Saturday. And yes, that performance was at 10 a.m. because that game kicked off at noon. And I was curious on Friday, is that the earliest performance Ludacris has ever had? And he confirmed it there that yes, indeed, it was. And for the students and fans in attendance, that was probably the most fun they had all day because when this game kicked off, there was a part of me that thought, okay, well, maybe because Clemson's not playing their best, maybe North Carolina can make this interesting. No, North Carolina's terrible. This game was over from the start, and quite frankly, if Clemson wanted to put 90 points on them, they probably could have.
I mean, it was 28-3 at the end of the first quarter. And look, you want to wake up a Clemson offense that needed to get going a little bit. This might have been the game to do that. I mean, again, you won 38-10. You didn't do a ton after halftime in this game, only had 3 points the rest of the way, but it was essentially over for that point. I mean, you were up 38-3 in this game at halftime, and it's just, or 35-3, excuse me, just crazy how bad UNC is. We figured they weren't going to be this year, and I think the TCU game should have pointed us in the direction of, like, this thing might get worse as the year goes on. It hasn't gotten better, and I almost wonder, man, like, I think Bill Belichick is going to survive the season, but at what point do you just pull the plug on this thing and the experiment that this is just not working?
Well, they become an afterthought, and the only reason we're really talking about them is because they played Clemson, and that's more relevant to what's happening here. But, like, this is not a team we're going to talk about week in and week out because they're just irrelevant, right? It was an interesting story coming into the year, and, yeah, the whole – stuff happening off the field that made it that much more intriguing. But, like, they're a terrible football team. They'll continue to be a terrible football team. And, yeah, I don't know if Bill Belichick coaches next year, but I can tell you this, they're not going to turn it around this season.
I mean, look, he's only getting older. He is currently 73 years old. He'll be 74 before the next football season. I just don't see this working. And we've said it from the jump, Tyler. We were skeptical about this hire and how it was going to work. It's been awful so far. It's not even like UNC is competitive out there. They're as uncompetitive as you can get. And I don't know if it's a talent issue or a coaching issue or whatever, but something's obviously wrong there. And I just don't. I mean, look, it would be great if UNC could find a way to get to a bowl game. That would be a success in my eyes. But I don't think this team is even going to be sniffing that this season.
Well, it served as a get-right game for Clemson, who's had their own struggles to start the season. As the last time we saw them before this, they were losing to Syracuse, obviously, and finding themselves 1-3 to start the year. So they at least got themselves back in the win column. What that means for them going forward, I don't know. We'll have to see. I still think that they're underperforming quite a bit, but at least for Saturday, they can feel good knowing they beat the brakes off of just what might be the worst team in FBS. I thought that was UCLA, but now my opinion's changed on that because, North Carolina, pretty terrible.
They're pretty bad, but that's what Clemson needed. Again, nobody's opinion on Clemson has changed because of that game. But, again, the schedule, it is pretty favorable the rest of the way. Like, you get Florida State coming into town. We thought that was going to be an automatic win for Florida State, but who knows now with the way that they've been playing. I mean, look, the schedule shapes up pretty well for them where Clemson can make a run here, and who knows, maybe with 2 ACC losses, maybe things can fall their way just like it did last year. But again, Clemson's got a long way to go, but that was a much-needed good performance for them on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, regardless, Clemson does not find themselves in the AP Top 25 coming away from week number 6 in college football. And I think it's really interesting to go back and look now at the preseason top 10. Let me read you off just the top 5. Texas was number 1. Penn State was number 2. Ohio State was number 3. Clemson was number 4. Georgia was number 5. Ohio State and Georgia doing fine. They're both in the top 10 as of right now. Ohio State is number 1. The other 3 teams, not a single one of them ranked 6 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, this feels like another year where we have a lot of parity in this sport where teams are just going down left and right. And I think this weekend kind of proved to be that with, 2 of the top teams in the preseason poll out of the rankings. And I think this just, again, goes to show that I've never been a big fan of the AP poll. I think you see some of the voters out there with the jobs that they've done, with leaving like that one voter who left South Carolina in as a basically the top 10 team after losing to Vanderbilt. I mean, I don't know what was up with that. But my point is the AP poll, it's got a lot of issues. It's a flawed system. But I think it's something that in the future we should not see any polls until week 6, week 7. Man, I like the way the college football playoff does it, but again, a lot of what they do is based off the AP poll.
Well, and I want to give credit to the AP poll voters this past weekend, because when you saw what Texas and Penn State did over the weekend, and this became something that everybody was very aware of coming away from those games, neither one of them has beaten a Power 4 opponent in the first month of the season. Right? All their wins are against G5 or FCS teams or whatever, so no quality wins to speak of. And anytime they played Power 4 teams, neither one of them's looked great doing it necessarily, say for Penn State almost making a comeback and winning against Oregon the week before, but playing 3 pretty disastrous quarters before that. But in the history of the AP poll, we've not seen the amount of huge swings I feel like we've seen so far this year. And again, at the end of the day, the college football playoff poll is the only thing that matters, but the AP poll does have an influence on it. So I give credit to the voters, and I saw a lot of the national people that do vote on the poll talk about this like, hey, I felt comfortable dropping Penn State and Texas out of my top 25. I didn't know if everybody else would do that, and that ended up certainly being the case. So I'm glad the AP poll is doing its job of holding teams accountable and not just saying, well, we ranked them, 9th last week, so we can only drop them to like 17th. Like, no, Texas and Penn State do not deserve to be in the top 25, and I'm glad that reflects it now.
Yeah, exactly. With the way those teams have played. And again, what have those teams done to win big games this season? Nothing. Again, Penn State lost to Oregon. You had Texas lose to Florida or to Ohio State and now to Florida. So I mean, look, it makes sense that they're out of the top 25, and it's good to see teams getting dropped that far because just the way they played. Again, name brand alone should not keep you in the top 25. How you perform on the field matters, and they have not played particularly well these last few weeks.
The number 1 team in the country is Ohio State, and I actually watched a little bit of Ohio State and Minnesota over the weekend because Minnesota actually got out to a 3-0 lead there, but Ohio State would go on to dominate them from there and win that game, pretty comfortably 42-3. Like, Ohio State is so good right now, they're not worth paying attention to. Now, they do have a tough game against Illinois on the road this upcoming weekend, which will be big noon Saturday, but like, outside of the Texas game, I feel like most people haven't been paying Ohio State attention because they've just been quietly dominating everybody that they've been playing.
They have been. I mean, they've been unequivocally the best team in the country so far this year, especially after Saturday's win 42-3 over Minnesota. Look, Julian Sayin is looking pretty good. 3 touchdowns, 326 yards. You had 3 different players score rushing touchdowns in this game, and you held Minnesota to 162 yards of offense. Ohio State's doing what they're supposed to do. But again, tough trip coming up this weekend to Illinois. We'll see what happens, but Ohio State is definitely the best team in the country right now.
Miami at number 2, Oregon at number 3. Oregon was off this past weekend. And then Ole Miss and Texas A&M at number 4 and number 5. Credit to A&M, picked up a pretty convincing win over Mississippi State, a team that's kind of been the talk of college football for the past couple weeks. I'm still kind of waiting for the inevitable collapse, but credit to Elko and his crew. They've gotten off to a really strong start this year, and what they have Florida this upcoming weekend, and if they can avoid getting upset by them, 6-0.
Off to good starts. Again, have not seen A&M ever put it together for a full season since joining the SEC in 2012, but I think this is a legit team. They look good so far this year. We'll see what they are the rest of the way. Same goes for Ole Miss, but I mean, I think we can confidently say Ole Miss has looked so much better with Trinidad Chambliss at quarterback over Austin Simmons, who was supposed to be their guy coming into the year, and obviously he's been banged up. But Chambliss has looked good, and Ole Miss, A&M are rolling. But those are two teams that have not made it to the SEC championship game, and A&M has never made it to the SEC championship game, and couldn't even tell you the last time Ole Miss has been there. So it's been a while for those programs, but things are off to a good start for them so far this year.
I feel like tomorrow we need to power rank teams in the SEC because I feel like this is going to be really, really hard to figure out.
It is. I mean, look, there are a lot of good teams in this conference, but obviously a lot of them are ranked in the top 25. It is hard to judge what they are, but now we're finally getting into conference play. Teams are beating up on each other every week. And like we said, Tyler, I don't think there's going to be any undefeated team in this conference, but again, that just goes to show how tough it is every single week.
Well, it wasn't just college football taking place this past weekend. Of course, NFL action yesterday, and the Major League Baseball postseason rolls on as well. We're in the divisional series. We'll recap what happened through the first two games of the DS coming up next as we wrap up today's edition of The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyrett and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday, talking not only about what happened in college football over the weekend, but the MLB postseason rolls on. You weren't here for the last half of last week, but I'm sure you enjoyed watching the wild card series. I saw your back and forth with our guy Yuva to see the Yankees take care of the Dastardly Red Sox in 3 games out there and advance themselves on to the the ALDS.
Yeah, I got a lot of friends and mutual friends that are Red Sox fans. So believe me, I was going back and forth with Yuva and had a lot of people, just chirping me about the Yankees. But they got the job done. And, the last 2 games, though, I talk about going from the highest of highs on Thursday to the lowest of lows after last night. Yankees are down 0-2 in the ALDS against the Blue Jays, and it's just been a real butt whooping so far.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Jays have completely shelled them in these last 2 games and jumped out to the 12-0 lead pretty quickly last night. And, the Yankees fought back to some degree to make it somewhat interesting, but the game was pretty much over at that point in time. And now you head back to New York for the 3rd game coming up tomorrow. But, the back's completely up against the wall, and I got a feeling Toronto's probably got this series in the bag, I would say.
Probably. I would say I still think the Yankees can win a game or 2 to make this interesting, but going back to Toronto for Game 5 just sounds awful right now. I mean, that place has been so tough for the Yankees to play this entire season, and yeah, man, it just hasn't been competitive at all. But we've seen teams come back from 0-2, especially the Yankees in recent memory, but I don't know. The bats have to wake up, and you need more from your pitching. I mean, it just has not been good enough. When you have your ace on the mound yesterday and he gets shelled like he did, that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, through the 3 of the 4 series so far in the divisional round, it's been pretty dominant from one standpoint or the others. The Cubs jumped all over the Brewers pretty quickly in the first game on Saturday, I guess it was. Won that game pretty handily. Ohtani had a phenomenal performance on the mound for the Dodgers and their win over the Phillies in game number 1, though he didn't do anything at the plate that day. But Teoscar Hernandez had the 3-run homer in the top of the 7th to help elevate them. And then the real competitive series has been what's been going on with Detroit and Seattle. They had the 11-inning game on Saturday, played another tight one last night. Julio Rodriguez for the 2nd game in a row coming up very clutch there, knocking in Cal Raleigh in the bottom of the 8th to elevate them. And this series has the makings of one that could end up going 5.
It's been very interesting so far. Again, kind of going back to what you were saying there, Tyler, the Brewers look like the team that they're supposed to be. Like, always had questions about them in the postseason after having such big years. Like, I vividly remember 2018 when they just had a really nice year, hosted the Dodgers in that classic NLCS and lost in 7 games. And look, they're back in the postseason again now, have a really good team. Obviously, we know what happened last year against the Mets, but looking good so far, but it's 1 game. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. The Phillies are interesting because, I mean, I think they're probably the favorite in the NL right now. They have Schwarber, they have Bryce Harper, have all these big names. Up 3-0 in this game, and let it be Teoscar Hernandez, the guy that, I don't know if you saw the highlight, Tyler, but that ball hit the right field. I forget what inning it was, but it was like a bases clearing, like double or something. Goes right by Teoscar, gives no effort, and then he's the guy that puts the Dodgers ahead with that 3-run homer. So big game for the Dodgers there to steal one on the road, mind. And then this Detroit Mariners series has been super fascinating so far. Again, if you're the road team starting out in these series, you take one of these games on the road, like Detroit in Seattle, you have the advantage now going back to Detroit for these next 2 games. And you don't have to face Tariq Skubal in these next 2 games. You may have to face him in Game 5, but if it doesn't get to that point, I mean, you're in a good spot right now. And he gave 2 homers yesterday to Jorge Polanco. So, look, the Mariners, much needed win yesterday. You would not want to go down 2-0. But I feel pretty good about Detroit right now, considering they did get one on the road, and they got these next 2 games coming up back at home.
So you got Game 2 of each of the NLDS games. You got Dodgers and Phillies coming up today. That'll be at 6:08, and then the nightcap is the Brewers and the Cubs at 9:08. Both those games will be on TBS, True TV, HBO Max, as we'll see if the Dodgers and the Brewers can advance 2-0 in those series. And then again, the ALDS games moving to the new locations coming up tomorrow for those respective game threes. And I said this to Bill on Friday that, my team, the Braves, are not in the postseason this year. First time in a while they haven't been in. And I found myself enjoying it a lot more because when you don't have a dog in the fight, you can just sit back and watch high-stakes baseball. It's actually pretty fun when you're not having to worry about what your team's doing or having the bitter taste in your mouth if your team get eliminated. So I've enjoyed this postseason more than most I have in a while.
Yeah, I can't say I feel the same way. It's
well, your team's in it. That's why.
Yeah, it's disappointing right now as a Yankee fan to see those first two games. Again, game one, I don't think the Yankees were going to win because the Blue Jays had their ace and the Yankees had their 4, maybe even their 5 starter on the mound. Just got dominated. But to get dominated the way they did yesterday, all that money you paid to Max Fried, I know he was great against the Red Sox, but man, I mean, that's a tough one. Now you got your backs against the wall, but hey, it's why they played 5 games, and that's why you have to win 3. The series isn't over yet. I'll be sitting on my couch tomorrow watching the Yankees in Game 3, and I think they're going to get the job done, and we'll see what happens from there. But it's always fun watching the postseason.
Fun nonetheless. We'll get into more of that tomorrow, as well as what happened in the NFL over the weekend, and continue to talk college football coming away from the bye week as we slowly start to turn our attention to South Carolina and LSU coming up this weekend in Baton Rouge. Jack, look forward to talking to you about tomorrow.
Yeah, man, I'll see you tomorrow.
Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, myself, Wes, and Chris, as we continue to recap the bye weekend here on The Game. 11 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you here. Coming off the bye weekend, we'll obviously focus plenty this week on Carolina and LSU coming up on Saturday night, but nice to get a little bit of a breather and refresher, have the weekend off, and just be able to focus on everything else going on in the world of college football and other sports as well. How did you guys enjoy your bye weekend? First of two this year with the way the calendar works.
I was doing a little camping, more accurately glamping, because I was in a cabin.
All right. You weren't roughing it?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, roughing it from the standpoint of, like, this kitchen in this cabin's a little small. You know, like, it's not bad, right? Not tent camping.
It's like, well, this bed's a little uncomfortable. That's not great.
But I did have to figure out the TV setup, right? That was important. We had to have the TV by the fire.
That's definitely glamping.
Well, that was critical, though. You know, I wasn't going to miss this weekend of college football.
Of course,
we sat around and watched football most of the day on Saturday. I hit up our guy Michael from Integrated Media and got some tips on Starlink.
Okay,
I now have a Starlink.
All right,
that I'll be deploying later this year. It did not. And he gave me this. That's the great thing when you call Michael. Like, if you got this idea, you got to call Michael at Integrated Media and their team, because he's like, look, man, if you don't have a good open space, if you got basically a tree canopy above you, it's not going to work. And it didn't.
Because you got to get the signal.
You got to get the satellite.
Yeah.
It's got to connect to outer space, basically. But I was able to use the hotspot. Starlink is better. You know, it's going to work for me next weekend or whenever I go.
Okay.
I'm going to test it out. Wes was very interested. But I was able to watch all the college football action. Man, we had some results, didn't we?
No doubt. How was your bye week, Wes?
It was great, man. We hung out. My parents came up to see the baby. Lots of chilling, watching football on the couch. So, I mean, I was happy as could be, man. I wasn't roughing it like Chris out there in the cabin in the woods or anything. But, you know, we had some great ball watching, some interesting results, right? Like we, you know, and we knew, hey, typically when you have these weekends where maybe you don't see upsets coming, that's when you get several of them. But, you know, Chris and I already recorded our podcast for the day this morning, and we were just talking, man. If you told me Florida would beat Texas, like in Gainesville, with the way Arch has played in a lot of games so far against when he's played good competition, I mean, obviously I didn't pick it, but it's not really like a super shocking result. But Penn State, who, you know, I think preseason a lot of us agreed, along with Clemson, was one of the two teams that just brought back as much as anybody in the country. If you'd have told me that they would go out there and lose to a UCLA team that we were making fun of last week, I mean, that is pretty shocking stuff to me, man. So some good games. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a couple of closer games in the nightcaps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was excited about Florida State, Miami. Miami looked really good, man. I know Florida State kind of chipped away a little bit, made it tighter, but to me, Miami was like clearly the better team in that game.
Yeah, let's linger on Penn State.
Okay, gonna start there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Am I messing up your agenda?
This is kind of a choose your own adventure type of day where I have different pathways we can go, but we'll start with Penn State.
Well, it was an adventure for Penn State. You know, I mean, they come out. That was a game where you're going to have to kind of bring your own juice to it. You're going out to the Rose Bowl. Not a lot of people there. Like, the crowd grew a little bit. It was almost like people around Los Angeles, hey, do you see y'all see what's going on here?
Yeah, you're busy doing something else down the street, and you're like, oh, hey, I guess we can
Although
check
I
out the
envision,
second
like,
half.
in L.A., by the time you get there, the game's been over for 12 hours.
Yeah, you got there today.
But a late arriving crowd, an 0-4 team with an interim coach. I mean, for UCLA, you couldn't script this thing any better.
No.
You know, like, you got Jerry Neuheisel.
Who is definitely Rick Neuheisel's son.
Golly. Like, is that Rick? You know, and you got the UCLA connection with Rick Neuheisel. You got Jerry, who's like 20 years old. Not really. He's calling plays for the first time. They have 2 days to practice. He said he slept for like 3 hours the whole week.
He didn't know how the headset worked.
Couldn't work the headset. Got the plays in. You got Nico, who, again, like, Wes, you're right. We're making fun of UCLA, kind of poking at Nico a little bit. You go out there, leave a good situation. How you liking? Well, he feels pretty good right now. He had the game of his life out there. You give up an early score for Penn State. You look totally unprepared for the surprise onside kick. And so not only if you're James Franklin, have you now taken a team that, to your point, Wes, was supposed to be the year, and now you've dropped a couple games already. One was to Oregon late. Okay, all right, you still didn't win the big game. Now you take it a step farther. You lose to an 0-4 UCLA team who was last seen recently getting not just beaten, but destroyed on that same field by New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And he's having to sit there and do the whole, not having to, but he chose to take the path of, I don't know, we had to travel a long way. Just not Happy Valley, not very happy now.
I said this earlier to Jack, and you're right. Wes making the point earlier that this was supposed to be the year. Everything they had coming back, Drew Aller, all these guys on defense, the running back situation, this was the year if they were finally going to break through, considering what all the other teams that we considered contenders had to replace, particularly at quarterback, this was going to be the season. And, yeah, heartbreaker last week against Oregon, but even your C-level game should be good enough to beat a team like UCLA. And it wasn't just that you lost. You got down 3 touchdowns in the blink of an eye. I mean, most of us probably weren't actually watching this game. We were probably watching Alabama and Vanderbilt or Florida and Texas, and you see the score at the bottom, or you get one of the break-ins during commercial. Hey, look what's happening UCLA and Penn State. And then it becomes like a second-screen game because you're like, okay, Penn State's going to find a way to come back. And they scored 2 quick touchdowns right after halftime to make it a 6-point game. And you're like, all right, here we go. They're going to find a way to come back and win. We're going to talk about this being kind of an embarrassing way to start, but they're going to come back and win, and it's all going to be forgotten here in a couple weeks. And then they just couldn't do enough to overcome what UCLA was doing. And again, credit to Jerry Neuheisel, credit to Nico and what they're able to do on offense. 42 points. This team had not led a game the entire year, and they put up 42 points on Jim Knowles, who they paid a crap ton of money to steal away from Penn State a season ago, and was supposed to be this world-beating defensive coordinator. They gave up 42 points to this UCLA team that was held together by duct tape and glue coming into this game.
Yeah, and so going into this game, Josh Pate brought up an interesting point. Who's the better QB going into this football game? And you still, I think based on what we've seen out of Nico this year, you probably would have said Drew Aller, but Nico played great both in the passing game and the run game. And, a lot of times you're going to pull an upset like this. To me, you typically are going to have just weird stuff happen. And, yeah, Penn State had a fumble. Yeah, you had the surprise onside kick. But it's not like they went out there and turned the ball over 5 times. You look at a game like that where you say, well, hey, we just coughed up the football. That's how you lose games, period. That was not the case here. I mean, in a lot of ways, at least statistically, and you're absolutely right, Tyler, I was not watching this game. I flipped it over trying to find out what the heck was happening. But this is not a game where you just look at it and say, hey, we just shot ourselves in the foot the whole game. UCLA was just able to stay on the field, 10 for 16 on third downs. Time of possession, nearly 40 minutes for UCLA to just over 20 for Penn State. I mean, they kind of just pulled the Vandy / Missouri that we saw against South Carolina, just make first downs, chip away. Penn State being down early probably felt like they were fighting the clock the entire afternoon. And, I just kind of assumed this will get put to bed and they'll eventually take the lead and pull away. And credit to UCLA and that staff for holding things together. That is not what happened, obviously. And now with James Franklin, man, this is the thing. If you build up a team, if you put all your resources, if you build a roster that we all agree preseason has a chance to make the playoff, you are a victim of your own expectations at this point. Not only did you lose in a game that, frankly, really could have gone either way against Oregon, but now you lose this one too. The seat gets warm in a hurry, no matter how many games you've won, because the expectations at this point are just so high.
Well, and don't look down. They still have 2 top 10 teams they have to play in Ohio State and Indiana, I believe in consecutive weeks as well, coming up later on in the year, because basically right now, and you're 0-2 in conference play, so you're jeopardizing yourself of even getting back to the conference championship. But to make a run at the playoff, which, again, if you go back and look, in the past 10 years, if we would have had a 12-team playoff, Penn State would have made it almost every single year because they've consistently been a 10-11 win team. Just obviously can't win those games against top 10 opponents. But you're asking them to have to be perfect now, including wins over top 10 teams. One of those would be the number 1 team in the country in Ohio State, to even just have a shot to be in the conversation of the playoff. Doesn't guarantee you get in at that point because of how bad this loss is, but you have no margin for error now, which, again, this was a team that was number 2 in the preseason poll that we thought, hey, there's ever going to be a year, this was going to be it, and now look where they're at.
Well, and imagine before the season saying, hey, guys, by week 6, Ohio State is number 1. You go, okay, yep, I get that. Things are the same as they always are, right?
Yeah.
But then you say, hey, Penn State and Texas are already out of the top 25. Clemson has already lost 3 games. Another one of the teams that did the best in the country, one of the best jobs in the country at retaining talent and bringing it back. They did.
Yep.
Hasn't translated. And then Indiana's in the top 10 again, and it just shows you and
it looks believable this time.
Yeah, Ohio State still top 5, Oregon still, these aren't shocking, but it just goes to show you the parity. I mean, that makes it so fun, so interesting. But yeah, for Penn State, I think it's kind of and y'all made a good point. James Franklin set the table for this. He was asked about this after the game. Hey, you said before the season, this is the best y'all have been in terms of personnel. What do you think of that? And he's like, I don't know what you want me to say. We just lost 2 straight games. Hard to say that, but he set those expectations.
Yep.
This is supposed to be the year. And so now you're stuck going, all right, big buyout. Does he look for an exit strategy? I don't know any of that. But if you're a Penn State person, you're sitting there going, if not now, when? And it's not anymore just about what was the conversation going into the season? Can they win the big game? Well, now it's shifted to, we just lost to UCLA. What is going on here? So, going to be tough to rebound from that because safe to say the competition certainly goes up from here for Penn State.
Well, and guys, in the category of just taking an entire thing of Epsom salt and just pouring it all directly in the wound, was that quote from Jerry Neuheisel. I hate to say this, but I had never practiced with the headset in terms of the button to talk to the QB. There are multiple times in the game I'm calling the play, but the headset is flipped up because I'm used to being a position coach. And then I'm pressing the wrong part of the button when talking to them. It was a mess. Hopefully we'll get that cleaned up by next week. I mean, that's the type of thing, if you were losing a game and the fans picked up on that on the message boards, you were getting ripped for. And now it's just a funny side note. This guy just picked up the PlayStation controller, started dialing up ball plays, and beats a top 10 team who was a freaking 20-plus point favorite going into the game.
Yeah, that makes it that much worse. And, again, he is the spitting image of Rick Neuheisel, in case you wanted to debate if that's actually his son or not. And it was actually pretty interesting watching Rick react to this in the CBS studios. Cool. This was happening, and I get it. They're not supposed to play favorites, but pretty cool moment to see a dad see his kid have that kind of success. Speaking of high expectations, boy, we had high expectations for Texas this year, and things ain't looking too great out there in Austin right now. We'll dive into what happened in the Swamp on Saturday. Up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Rolls along into Reaction Monday here on the Game.
All right, everybody. Y'all told you earlier that I hit up my friend Michael from Integrated Media this week. Help me get my Starlink all set up, answer any questions. And so whatever tech or audio-visual questions that you have, whether you're at home, you're going on the road like I was, doing a little camping or glamping, they can help you get set up. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes's home. We trust the folks over at Integrated Media with all of our tech and AV needs. Whether it's getting you set up with Starlink, if you got some dead spots, Wi-Fi at your home or your business, and you want to get those cleaned up, mounting televisions, Sonos wireless speakers, anything that you may need, including complete smart home systems where you can control your lights, devices, thermostats, everything from the touch of a button, they can do it for you. IntegratedMediaInc.com. You can also check out some examples of some of the great past work that they've done, Integrated Media Columbia, on Instagram or Facebook. Hit them up today, Integrated Media.
Nowadays in college athletics, maybe there's a little bit of a black eye about the sport, what it can teach, what locker rooms are like, and I can only speak for ours. I'm not giving up on team, and that's a football team. And I'm humbled to be a part of it. And for them to do what they've done over the last couple of weeks, I think is to be commended in today's world, right? They didn't blame anybody else. They took ownership, and they went back to work.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you, breaking down a wild bye week of football as we saw a lot of upsets, including what happened down there in Gainesville with Florida taking down, at the time, number 9, Texas, 29-21. And I always enjoy being on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, during a college football Saturday. But when you have results like you had down there in Gainesville, some of the best and funniest stuff can come from it. And I got a good laugh out of all the people that said, it'd be like Billy Napier when his job's on the line or when his seat is boiling hot. And it's just a picture of Nick Saban because now this is becoming a thing, right? When you do it once, like, okay, it's a fluke, whatever. But like now, when Billy Napier's back is truly up against the wall, and we talked about this on Friday in Buy or Sell, like if they got embarrassed by Texas, he realistically could not have had a job this morning. They go out there and win. It's the wildest thing. Now, look, Texas may not end up being that great, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But, like, man, just when you count them out, Billy's crew finds a way to somehow pull a win out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to credit all of them. Kept the team engaged. Did it last year. It seemed they were on the precipice of having to make a change there. Win some games down the stretch. Save your job, give yourself another chance coming into this year. Almost the same conversation, right? Doesn't go well at the beginning. You go to LSU. DJ Lagway throws 5 picks. He looks like he's maybe regressed as compared to last year when he showed some great things as a true freshman. But I think there were a couple things, right? He wasn't done yet. You talk to people down in Florida, and seriously, I heard that going into this game. He's done. Probably going to happen after the Texas game.
Yep.
And you go, okay, well, what if they win? The thing about this Florida team is the offense has been the biggest problem. And with Billy Napier being the play caller and holding on to that so tightly and giving some answers that weren't satisfactory. You remember his quote last week, guys? Well, it's what got us here. And people were going, well, we don't want to be here.
Yeah, I'll say here's not a good place.
Maybe that got them the Florida job when he was at Louisiana. I mean, there's a case to be made there for sure. But their defense has been quite good all year, which is made even more remarkable by the fact that they haven't been playing complimentary football. Their offense hasn't been very good. And so you're sitting there going, is there a path? Well, you look at what they did last year. If they can keep getting that performance by their defense and just be somewhat good offensively, maybe even average, maybe they could get some wins. And you got the week-to-week nature of any given Saturday in college football nowadays, and this is what you get. Now, got to go out and probably win some more. I don't know if winning the Texas game and, losing out probably doesn't save your job.
No.
But you're safe for now. This is going to be a tenuous, kind of rocky deal for now. That's when I look at that game, though, I go back to the defense. They just smothered Texas and Arch Manning that entire game.
Yeah, and, Arch, you look at the numbers, it was not a terrible effort. 16 for 29, 263 through the air, couple touchdowns, also had a couple interceptions. The big thing is he was also their leading rusher. That's not something you ever want to see if you're Texas. Wisner rushed for 11 yards. Like that's just not going to get it done, obviously. But guys, one of my biggest takeaways, and I really hate to go here, I hate to go there with this, but because I know these days it's very, I guess, typical for a lot of people to do the whole, well, the media, or hey, the media this, the media that. What is the media? Like, there's a lot of different people that make that up. It was actually pretty annoying to me that one of the first sentences said as this game was ending was a valiant effort by Arch Manning, but Texas will fall short. I'm like, how is that the conversation from this game, that Arch Manning had a valiant effort? If any other quarterback has that exact day and has had the exact season that he's had and just lost to Florida, literally the first sentence of analysis after the game is ending is not about the quarterback of the losing team. If he threw for 5 touchdowns and was just incredible and his defense let him down, that might be one thing. But, I'll be honest, too, I bought into some of the Arch hype. Not that he was going to win the Heisman, but I was like, the way people have talked about this guy, surely he's pretty good. But I mean, we gotta dial this thing back. Even just the conversation of what is happening right now. The story of this game is that with their backs against the wall, however they're doing it, Florida went out and they won this football game. And there is something to be said. A lot of people make fun of Sunbelt Billy and how his press conferences are boring and he's kind of just talks slow and puts you to sleep and all those things. Well, we saw in the Netflix doc last year, sometimes just being that steady sense of calm is exactly what you need when the world is on fire outside of your building. And, I don't know how long this tenure is going to last, but credit to him. He's been kind of buried multiple times now, and they keep finding a way to win games.
Well, and that's credit to him that he's not lost the team through any of this, and that's what kept him around last year when they won those games against LSU, Ole Miss, and beat a hapless Florida State team at the end of the year. It's like, hey, he never lost the team even though it looked like he surely was going to get fired, and the same thing's being said now because we start off 1-3 and everybody's ready to run you out of town. He still was able to get the team to believe and get ready for that game and all that. And again, Texas may not end up being all that great of a team, so that win may not look as great when the season comes to an end. And again, they've got a lot of really tough teams, A&M coming up, Ole Miss, Georgia, all teams like that. So they're still going to have to go out there and continue to prove themselves. But at least for another week, Billy Napier has once again survived. And I don't know, maybe he's like the cockroach of coaches where you just can't seem to kill the guy. And he's going to be left standing when it's all said and done. But, yeah, credit to them. We'll get more into Texas on the other side, but Florida does deserve a lot of credit for what they did on Saturday.
Well, my question is now, if you go to A&M next week and you lose on Saturday, you're then 2-4.
Mm-hmm.
Probably goes back to bad vibes again.
Well, that's how it happens in Gainesville. Swings one week to the next.
It's like Gus Malzahn now at Auburn. What saves his job, though? What gets him another year? Because, to your point, Tyler, at A&M, a Mississippi State team that nobody's fired up about playing.
Nope.
You do get them at home. Neutral site with Georgia. At Kentucky, at Ole Miss, Tennessee at home, Florida State at home. Several more top 25, heck, 3 top 10 teams, 4 top 12 teams remaining in that schedule. Yeah, you beat Texas. That saves you for now. It was almost certainly done if they lost.
Sure.
Did you just stave it off another few weeks? Because I still think you're going to have to get some results throughout the rest of the year to be able to definitely save this tenure.
Yeah, you have to salvage something of this season. You can't just go even 6-6 again, because that's kind of consistently what he's been since he's been at Florida as a 500 coach. And I personally don't believe that even if the season does turn out to be decent, that he's suddenly going to turn Florida into some playoff contender, because he's had ample time to do that and it hasn't happened. But for the sake of saving his job, I mean, I think you have to still be around that 8-ish win range, which would be almost perfect down the stretch, maybe with one more loss there to make something like that happen. And I don't know. But again, we counted them out this week, and they went out there and did it, so nothing's impossible, I guess.
Yeah, and, I mean, has he reached the point, guys, where the people are like, that are Florida fans are literally pulling against Florida because...
I think they were.
Like, they're ready to get off this ride. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
The roller coaster has been fun, but I'm ready to move on to a different one. And I don't know, man. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll analyze the Texas angle of this and what this means for the previous number 1 team in the country coming into the year as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls on your Reaction Monday here on The Game.
All right, everyone, let's tell you about our friends over at Game Day Men's Health. If you're a guy out there listening and you've been struggling with some unwanted symptoms like muscle loss, weight gain, not sleeping well, low energy, not feeling like yourself, make sure you go get checked out at the clinic at Game Day Men's Health, built specifically for men just like you, and they specialize in testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, to boost your energy and strength. But to see if you're a candidate for treatment and if it may help you, give them a call, 803-265-3161, or go visit GameDayMen'sHealth.com for more information. They have in-house labs. You're not going to feel like you're at a doctor's office. You go in there, comfortable man cave style clinic, get your results at their in-house labs in 15 minutes or less, and get yourself a personalized consultation to let you know how they can help. Again, that's GameDayMen'sHealth.com, conveniently located in Northeast Columbia, or GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Check it out today.
Okay, obviously disappointing loss in the fact that, man, we just didn't play great. We really didn't play very good, and especially early on in the ball game. You know, we struggled to get stops defensively. We really were not very good at the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball early. We got a little better on defense, but we just weren't great at the line of scrimmage on offense. Had some opportunities, missed some opportunities, but we battled and competed, and we competed till the very end. I love the fight of the guys, but we got to play better, you know, and we just didn't play good enough, and that's on me. So,
welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Quick reminder, Coach Beamer, his presser back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, which you can listen to right here on the game during the halftime show as he'll preview the matchup with LSU coming up on Saturday night. But we are continuing to break down what happened down in the swamp where Texas, at the time number 9 in the country, now currently unranked, fell to the what seemed to be hapless Florida Gators, 29-21. Steve Sarkisian there talking about, well, they just didn't play well, and that's certainly true in a lot of areas. And the focal point of Texas is always going to revolve around Arch Manning, especially when he's gotten off to the shaky start of the season that he has so far. And I'm one of those people that believes two things can be true at the same time. I believe Arch Manning is not playing to be the player that he was billed to be for the season. But Saturday, watching that game, it's also very obvious he does not have a ton of help around him. That offensive line was terrible. Running game wasn't there. You know, receivers aren't stepping up, making some of the plays they need to. And looking at the offensive line, I know we don't look at Pro Football Focus grades as the end-all, be-all. Their right tackle, Nick Brooks, got a 0.0 in pass blocking on Saturday.
Ooh.
I think we can say that's a highlight of concern if you're getting those kind of grades on pass blocking. Like, he was under duress the entire game, didn't have a lot of time, didn't look comfortable back there. So, yes, he's not playing great, but he's also not getting a lot of help around him either.
Yeah, they were having to rely. He was under fire all day. They couldn't run the ball well, which then puts you in, second and long, third and long. And then Florida, who's been good up front, they've been good just across the board defensively, I think. They looked the part. They were just able to tee off. Whether it's bringing 4 men, whether it's bringing extra pressure. And then you're in obvious passing situations. And, looking at the game, and Sark is a really sharp offensive mind. He was trying to do some things to counteract that, screens, different play designs. Nothing was working. Just one of those games. And then you're having to rely on throwing the ball downfield because you are in third and long, second and long situations. You're getting into more of a pass-throw game later in the game because you're down and you're trying to make a comeback in a quick amount of time. And that just played right into Florida's hands. You need more time to let those downfield routes develop. And, he missed some guys. There were some miscommunications, I think. But it really started up front. And I think what I'm sitting here wondering, and I'm sure Texas fans are, is you have recruited on paper extremely well. This is Texas, and you're not able to block Florida. You're not able to run the football. Arch Manning is not playing great ball. You've got Sark, who's regarded, I think rightfully so, as a brilliant offensive mind, and you just couldn't do much. You couldn't do much. I mean, you made some big plays, but you were overly reliant on those big plays. And I think people are going, what is the problem here exactly, right? Because you seem to have the pieces, but it's just not clicking so far.
Sorry, I'm still stunned by this 0 pass blocking grade.
You ever seen that, Wes?
I had to go see this for myself. 32 pass block opportunities, and he gave up 8 pressures, including 6 hurries, 1 hit, and a sack. That is tough, man. Coming from one person, 8 pressures from one guy in a game is it's tough. But I had the same question as you did, Chris. How does this happen at Texas? I think yet another example. Putting together a competent offensive line in today's college football world is just not easy to do. Now, and if you have been able to do that, if you've done that, then you have a massive advantage because there's a lot of teams around the country right now who we all thought were going to be pretty good football teams. We looked at the talent they had. We looked at the talent they were bringing back, what they did in the portal, and it just goes to show you if you struggle up front, it still negates everything else you have. That Wisner kid, we've seen what he can do. He stepped in. He was a backup to begin the year last year. He stepped in and was a stud for Texas last year and did absolutely nothing against Florida because there's just simply no room to run.
Looking at their offensive line, they had no pickups out of the portal either. So they went into the season. They lost some guys to the NFL, but they went into the season believing what they had coming back and their development process was going to be good enough. And it's very clear that it's not. And I think we kind of looked at the week 1 game against Ohio State and said, okay, that's Ohio State, defending national champions. That's a good defense. All right, a lot of teams are going to struggle against them, but they didn't look overly impressive against a team like San Jose State a couple weeks ago. They handled the business against Sam Houston, which looks like a really, really bad team. But now doing this against Florida, and again, it doesn't get easier. They got Oklahoma this upcoming weekend, which a texter did point out they are actually favored in this game as of right now, which kind of seems like easy money. But they still got to play Oklahoma. They still got to play Georgia. They got to play A&M at the end of the year. Like, this could really end up being a bad season. And unfortunately, you don't have the ability to go out and just acquire talent midseason. You have what you have, especially offensively. You're just going to have to deal with for the final 7 games.
Well, and I think the concern is, you look, again, it's not like you're looking at it and going, although Florida hasn't been what they want to be in Gainesville, again, they've had a good defense. And so if you're Texas, you're saying, all right, we had a bad day against a good defense. Now you got to go play Oklahoma in a rivalry game. Oklahoma, one of our members posted on the Insiders Forum over the weekend a stat, and I can't properly credit. I don't have it in front of me, but Oklahoma might have the best defense in the country.
Yep.
Right through 5 games, they are they're top 5 in like all the categories. They're top 2 in most of them. They're giving up like 19% conversions on third down defensively. They're first in points. They're first in tackles for loss. They're first in sacks. And so if you're Texas, you're going, all right, if we struggled that much against Florida, are we going to be able to block Oklahoma up front? Legitimate concern, I think.
Yeah, they sacked Jackson Arnold 9 times a couple weeks ago when they played Auburn. Like, they're probably licking their chops looking at this Texas offensive line, thinking about what they're going to do to them this weekend.
Yeah. And really, guys, the right tackle spot is the one that has just been a huge issue for them. If you look at Texas's individual efforts on the O-line in this game, at least according to PFF, there were some good performances. But as we know, it all kind of has to work hand in hand, especially in the run game. If you're going to have any success out there. And how shocked were y'all, though, to see – and I know Mateer is probably out for Oklahoma, but to see Texas favored in this game?
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't really get it either.
Seems like easy money.
Who knows nowadays?
No, yeah.
Week
to week.
That's who knows.
They do. We don't. But that caught my attention for sure.
Hey, they didn't build those big buildings in Vegas by being wrong a lot. So they maybe know something that we don't know. Obviously, a lot happened in college football over the weekend, but 2 pretty big performances by a couple former Gamecocks in the NFL, which we'll get to coming up next to wrap up the day. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on your Reaction Monday on The Game.
All right, how we doing?
Not as good as you.
Oh, much, feels good, man. Feels good to get that first win. It was a team win. Defense played great. O-line played elite today. I believe we had 0 sacks versus that front, so, that's a great building point, and, catch that momentum. Go on a run, just keep working, keep progressing, and keep doing what we're doing.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Monday. That, of course, the voice of former Gamecock quarterback Spencer Rattler talking yesterday after his first career victory as an NFL starter, 26-14 over the New York Giants out there in New Orleans. And you can hear in his voice the excitement and probably relief to finally get that monkey off his back as he's been starting for almost a full season now out there in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think the theme has been among NFL scouting types, even fans, if you kind of look at social media on game days and during the week. Obviously, the Saints have not been a good football team, but people aren't looking at this going, they don't have a quarterback. There's been very encouraging signs, very encouraging and pretty high-level play from Spencer Rattler. It's been more about what's going on around him. And so good for him to like you said, Tyler, get that first win. You can tell he's fired up about it. I'm excited for him. He's a guy that, you look here at South Carolina, he had some highs and lows. Look at that 2023 season. Not an ideal situation for him. Was under fire, was under duress a lot, and was still able to, I think, elevate his game. And now that he's gotten his opportunity in the league, awesome to see what he's done with it. So great to be consistent and get that result for Spencer.
Well, Spencer's playing pretty well because the Oklahomans are trying to claim him now.
Uh-oh.
So
I did see that.
Lincoln Riley is claiming him, which I'm sure Spencer not too happy about that. But, it's been great, man. Good for him. He always handled himself in a first-class way the whole time, that he was here, and certainly enjoyed interacting with him while he was in Columbia. And just a good day all the way around for former Gamecocks. Rico Dowdle looked, phenomenal. I always kind of thought that Rico was one of the more underrated Gamecocks in the last maybe 20 years. He is showing that in the NFL. Was running through tackles, was running to daylight, was making people miss. Like that, sometimes you look at a big day for a running back and you're just like, man, the O-line dominated that game. There was room to run, but Rico was taking full advantage of it and turning, chunk plays into even longer plays. So really happy for him. Xavier Legette had a couple catches and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel had some big plays in that game. Javon Kinlaw was pretty disruptive part of the game I watched for the Commanders. So I don't know if anybody else had big plays, but it was a pretty good day for former Gamecocks throughout the league.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle, by the way, 23 carries, 206 yards, and a touchdown, ran along of 53 in that game. And he's somebody, because Chuba Hubbard was banged up, so he kind of stepped into his role there yesterday, and my goodness, made the most of it. I get it, that's against a pretty bad Miami team, but it's very hard to run for into the hundreds in the NFL anyway, and to do that yesterday was impressive, and I think reminded a lot of people like, oh, hey, Rico Dowdle's still around. It's crazy he's only 27 years old, because it feels like he's been in the league forever at this point.
Yeah, he's hung around, done some good and it's not like this is that was a tremendous performance. It's not like it's a completely out of nowhere, like, every now and then this guy shows up on the NFL scene and has this one big game, and you're like, who is that guy? Where'd he come from? Rico Dowdle's rushed for 1,000 yards in the NFL before with the Cowboys, but that was a legacy game. I was texting with my brother. We're both, long time and frankly long-suffering Panthers fans. That was the most Panthers ball that I've watched all season.
Yeah,
for sure. I watched most of the game, and that combined probably beat the past 2 to 3 years that I've watched, just watching that one game. It was fun to watch. It was back and forth. Bryce Young made some plays, like you said, Wes. Xavier Legette had his first touchdown catch of the season. Great ball by Bryce Young. Great catch by Xavier to secure it, go to the ground. Not an easy catch by any means. But Rico was tremendous. I was surprised at some of the holes, honestly, that he had. But I didn't look PFF at what he did after contact, but man, he was really, really good, turning some of those, hey, this is a pretty good gain into, oh, this is a really, really good gain. So awesome game by him, and you got to think he's going to factor even more into the plans going forward. At least he should. I
think I heard he also scored 38 fantasy points for anybody that had him on their team yesterday.
I did not have him. Hopefully some folks out there did. Well, Tyler, you said Miami was a pretty bad football team. So was Carolina. So
that is true. Yeah, that was truly a battle of two of the worst teams so far this year. So, yeah, I guess kind of an even matchup when you look at it that way.
It ended up being a great football game. So
yeah, it was.
There is that.
And I didn't get a chance to see any of this game. I was watching the Eagles and the Broncos, but apparently the Hornets play-by-play guy was calling this game and was calling it like it was the Super Bowl.
Protect this guy at all costs. Eric Collins. I want him to call somehow every game. Like every big game, we need to get him a private jet.
Yeah.
Make sure that he can get to all of them. Like he needs to do college games somehow. He needs to do all of them.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
To make a game between, again, two of the worst teams in the league seem like it's the biggest game of the entire year. Credit him. That's pretty cool.
It really did make a difference. Like it was a good enough game on its own.
Yeah.
But him calling the game just gave this level of excitement that was it was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else to add, Wes?
I mean, I was just glad to see the Panther. Tyler, you didn't get to see the game. They took the lead late, and then Miami instantly hit a huge play,
right,
to seemingly win the game. And you're just like, well, that's
typical.
Panthers football
there you go.
for you.
Typical.
Here it goes again.
Yeah. But credit, they drove back down and hit a game winner.
Yeah, no, exciting weekend all around from a college football standpoint. A lot of Gamecocks doing things well in the NFL too. We'll slowly start turning our attention to LSU coming up tomorrow. Again, Beamer's press conference tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock as the Gamecocks get set to take the field once again this upcoming weekend in Baton Rouge. I'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next, halftime show here on Your Reaction Monday on The Game.